Princess Lilibet Diana had been christened. Why would they use a title for their children that represents an institution they loathe so much? She was never pregnant at all. Instead, the videos embolden conspiracy theorists. They're calling it Megspiracy, and the pair are being subjected to yet more merciless ridicule. Well, Harry and Meghan have never provided any evidence for that highly incendiary claim. It's not like they haven't had the chance to. After all, they pumped out 6 hours of self-indulgent bilge on Netflix, trashing Britain and the press for its racism.
Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
Meghan's Netflix series, released to the world this morning, is packed with, well, not really revelations, are they? It's sort of rehashed old revelations with a new twist. As it turns out, we've apparently been wrong all along. Britain is a nasty, racist hellhole where only magnificent Meghan stood up to all this, and the world's biggest victim.
Do you think if Kate and William did this, do you think
they'd ever release it?
If they did,
do you think Kate would release a twerking video,
use headlines
heavily
like that?
pregnant at the bedside?
Would people say things like that?
The thing is, these two will sell anything about their privacy.
This crisis won't die down until the irrefutable truth comes out.
A lot of the royal watchers were complaining that they felt like her posts on social media where she barely shows the kids is almost taunting the king, who doesn't know these children, and how unfair this is.
Harry and Meghan playing games that resulted in people unnecessarily questioning things. Again, every toxicity thing is result of them.
For Harry and Meghan, it's more a case of never reign and never abstain, especially when it comes to nauseating self-publicity, which invariably backfires.
They're legally covering their backs. There's just too many unknowns. And then, of course, we have that the doctor that allegedly delivered Lily quit her practice 2 weeks after giving birth to Lily, or delivering Lily. That sentence there is missing.
Prince William doubles down. According to multiple sources, it's now a matter of when, not if, he strips Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their royal titles.
And now they want to give their kids the titles of prince and princess, even though they don't live anywhere near the royal family. They don't do any duties. They do nothing to deserve it. They live in a mansion in Montecito in California and use their own royal titles to make loads of money.
The story opens on a contradiction that critics say is impossible to ignore. If Harry and Meghan reject what the monarchy represents, why keep tying their children to royal titles? As old accusations and resurfaced claims collide with fresh public scrutiny, the controversy around their image, their messaging, and their family story is pushed back into the spotlight.
Things were dealt with a bit more, you could call it aggressively, when it came to errant members of a royal family. You sent them off to war and hoped that war took care of the rest, sort of thing. And so I think in this sort of modern era, you do actually need some way to, discipline may sound like a harsh word, but to share with them, hey, you're part of this. You have to be a situation like Harry, because Harry and Meghan left in part because they thought they could just do whatever the heck they wanted. Nobody was going to tell them no.
Now the narrative shifts from media outrage to palace tension. Behind closed doors, the video claims a quiet but serious review is unfolding at Buckingham Palace, one that could have lasting consequences far beyond headlines and television debates.
That they kept telling the world how ghastly the monarchy is. It's a prison camp. All the royals want to get away from it, but they can't because they're trapped in the world of titles and privilege. And now they want to give their kids the titles of prince and princess, even though they don't live anywhere near the royal family. They don't do any duties. They do nothing to deserve it. They live in a mansion in Montecito in California.
According to the narration, this is no longer just about Harry and Meghan themselves. The real focus has moved to Archie and Lilibet, their documents, their titles, and their place within the royal line of succession.
In this case, about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bump, the fact is Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince.
The voiceover frames this as a story of contradiction and concealment, arguing that every unanswered question leads back to the same core issue: how Harry and Meghan continue to benefit from royal identity while publicly condemning the institution behind it. In that framing, the debate is no longer personal gossip. It becomes a question of public credibility.
That Harry and Meghan is a bit like criticising the police force. I often criticise the Met Police. My uncle was a commissioner in the Met Police. Doesn't mean that I don't believe in having a police force. You can criticise the monarchy. and say, here are the fault lines, and do it clumsily.
But why
as
would
well.
they want?
And
Why would they want to inflict on their children royal titles that make them part of the royal family worldwide and expose them to the misery and pain and trauma which Harry tells us he suffers on an hourly basis, normally for large checks, by the way?
Here, the narration sharpens its point. The Sussex title is presented not just as heritage, but as brand currency. Every deal, launch, and public appearance is portrayed as proof that royal status remains central to the image they sell to the world.
How does it get there, Omid? Surely you as the author, I mean, you must be furious, right? You must be demanding. Heads roll. And you want names, don't you, ironically? Omid, about who did this to you? Who besmirched your reputation as an author? I would, Omid. I'd want to know right now, especially if I was trying to convince the world that I had nothing to do with it myself, and I'd never ever put these names in writing, and maybe some lawyer had come along and told me not to. I mean, that couldn't possibly have happened because you've given us your word, and as I've established so far in this monologue, your word is your bond and should be taken as sacrosanct. Well, I'm going to cut through all this crap. I'm going to tell you the names of the two senior royals.
The video then extends that argument to the next generation, suggesting that children's titles are being viewed not simply as tradition, but as added value. In this telling, royal styling becomes part of a larger commercial identity.
Apparently, they invited all the royals to Lilibet's christening, but they all declined to come, as if they're all going to get on a plane and fly to California to embrace the people who've been trashing them for the last 3 years. But it looks like from the jungle drums, they have been invited to the coronation, right? Yeah. Now, they're holding it out to make it all about them, make it a big drama. So do you think they're actually going to come?
At this point, the narration raises the stakes. It argues that the issue has moved beyond Harry and Meghan's personal choices and now centers on what those titles could mean for Archie and Lilibet in the future.
I do now, yeah. I think because it's their currency, isn't it? They've made an awful lot of money, and again, this it's their tact by having that association with the royal family.
It's the cachet and cash.
You mentioned sort of, the favoured journalists that they were briefing in the first instance that they weren't going to have titles, and now there's another screeching U-turn. We already had one of the U-turns about the racism.
The rewritten narration revisits one of the most explosive moments in the saga. The claim that Archie's title became part of a racism narrative. The voiceover presents that episode as a turning point, one that, in the video's view, intensified public anger and deepened palace mistrust.
And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What? About how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Hold up.
There's
Stop
several
right now.
There's several conversations.
There's a conversation with you?
With Harry.
About how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Ooh.
From there, the story argues that once royal titles are used in such a charged public narrative, the palace can no longer afford to look away. In this version of events, every record tied to the children suddenly carries greater constitutional weight.
There was no racism.
No, none at all, and that was actually quite shameful, what was said at that time.
Let's remember what she said. This is what she told 50 million people around the world. Watch this.
I do recall it and regret it.
It's worth reminding.
The idea of the first member of color in this family not being titled in the same way that other grandchildren would be, it's not their right to take it away.
It was a complete... Hang on, Tessa. It was a complete lie.
Appalling ignorance, and also used in a very, very nasty way to attack people who couldn't answer back.
Yes.
The narration then broadens the lens, claiming that outside reporting and palace whispers are now converging on the same conclusion. Pressure is building around Prince William, and the question is no longer whether action will be considered, but how far it may go.
Fascinating reporting coming from News Nation, the US news channel, and its head of entertainment, Paula Frolic, who reveals Prince William to change the monarchy forever.
The voiceover paints Harry and Meghan as increasingly dependent on the royal mystique, even as their media momentum fades. In that framing, William is cast as someone who may see that dependence not as harmless branding, but as an institutional risk.
Element within the royal family that Prince William was forced to deny.
Michael, you want to jump in?
Wasn't right.
I was going to say,
and this is another example.
Yes, I totally agree.
Her Majesty, His Majesty the King, has played a blinder in all this because he let it be known from the very outset that they were welcome to come, Meghan and Harry, to the coronation, putting the ball firmly in their court. If they decline, it will make them look small-minded, petty, mean-minded.
Here, the narration presents the possible removal of titles not as revenge, but as policy. The argument is simple and deliberate. If someone is not a working royal, the title itself may no longer serve a meaningful purpose.
Fewer titles mean there is less of a chance for a degenerate like Prince Andrew, now called Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, to slip through. Which means, as I previously reported, Harry and Meghan will lose their titles, as well as Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie.
The next beat introduces legal defiance. The video claims Meghan is unwilling to accept any effort to remove the children's titles, turning what had been palace speculation into a potential public showdown.
And Meghan just thinks she's too wonderful to be left out of it, and she will win because she'll go to court if she doesn't keeps her title. I don't know, it's very hard. It's very hard to lose your title. But I do really hope that it's taken away. I mean, she's complained for over 6 years now what a terrible time she had. She was nearly wanted to kill herself. She didn't want to live. Then what's she trying to get back in there somewhere? Nobody wants her. She's not going to listen to anything she's been told.
The narration answers that threat with certainty, insisting that royal titles come from the crown and that only the crown decides whether they stay. In this telling, the balance of power remains firmly with the monarchy.
So you can't really put them into the Buckingham Palace and say, look, if you feel like doing any work, do it. And if you don't, because that's not going to be a way that Harry doesn't mind that, which is extraordinary, but it's not a way to do that. And I think if they're going to school and you leave them there with a title, Prince and Princess, they're going to get bullied.
Now the tone darkens. The voiceover suggests that the story is moving into unprecedented territory, beyond public relations, beyond media feuds, and into a crisis that could redefine how royal legitimacy is handled behind palace walls.
Another lie. And by the way, Meghan, if you don't like me calling you a liar, just sue me and we'll go through all this in court.
And if she wants to do anything politically in America, which is on and off with her, isn't it? She can't do it with the title. So what's she worried about? Just drop out, but she won't because she's so determined to get her own back. And that it needs someone strong like William who's going to absolutely push it through.
I absolutely agree.
The narration claims that Buckingham Palace advisors have opened a formal internal review focused directly on Archie and Lilibet. Their births, paperwork, and official standing are presented as the center of a growing constitutional examination.
Yeah, nobody set out to destroy you. You destroyed yourselves in this country with your ludicrous, hypocritical behaviour. The truth be told, what she just said is complete and utter garbage by the British media, the public, and the royal family that they've all now abandoned. That's the truth.
Here, the voiceover leans into the institutional stakes. For the monarchy, it says uncertainty is more dangerous than scandal, because questions about lineage cut to the very foundation of royal continuity.
The first thing is that these children are being raised in some type of freak show. It's like they are Michael Jackson's children who were paraded to the world but covered up in masks. Yeah, but then remember, he covered their identities and their faces in masks. So of course they're very likely to be messed up, growing up with such messed up parents who are using them in such a mucked up manner. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say on the titles is that I think what Prince William is acutely aware of, and this has certainly been my reporting, is that look at what happened when you allowed to run rampant for so many years, chasing the cash.
The story then zeroes in on Archie's birth certificate, presenting it as a critical document in the line of succession. The narration emphasizes the later name change as a detail that in the video's framing transformed private paperwork into a matter of public consequence.
Even if Harry and Meghan right now are earning their own money, that well is drying up. You've got to take the ability for them to damage the royal family in the future away, and you've got to do that now. You've got to do it swiftly.
The voiceover underscores why that edit matters. Changes like this are portrayed as rare, formal, and traceable. In other words, if the document was altered, the narration suggests someone requested it, approved it, and recorded it.
California Birth Index, and per the website at thecaliforniabirthindex.org, the California Birth Index, or CABI, is a database that stores records of births in California, extracts of birth certificates. Putting her full official name of Rachel Meghan Markle, you can see that the official records show.
As investigators search for explanations, the video says the stories fail to align. With conflicting accounts and no clear chain of responsibility, the narration frames the paperwork issue as a mystery that only deepens scrutiny.
I've got the breaking royal celebrity news. Meghan Markle has changed her name on her son's birth certificate. On the original birth certificate, registered on May 17, 2019, the Duchess gave her name as Rachel Meghan, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Oh, that's quite a name.
The voiceover expands from one document to the broader birth narrative itself. It argues that royal protocol around Archie's arrival was broken in ways that would never normally go unquestioned, then pivots to Lilibet, portraying her case as even more significant because key steps were handled privately, far from traditional palace oversight.
They decide, okay, well, you know, we have to come out and like show the baby in some way, but we're not coming out to the street. The filthy masses are not going to have anything to do with our kid. So then they show up, and there's Meghan in her white dress with Harry, and he's holding this completely still baby.
That it just really kind of boggles the mind. I mean, just for titles, for example. So when Archie was first born, they said they didn't want him to have a title. He was going to be a private citizen. I was like, bravo, you understand. He's not going to be a working member of the royal family. He is going to have to live a normal life, get a normal job. That is fantastic. And then it came out later in the Oprah Winfrey interview. Well, they denied him a title and security because he is a mixed race child. And then it was kind of like...
At this stage, the narration connects everything back to image and identity. It argues that Meghan's current public persona, her brand, her visibility, her influence is built on the mystique of royal association, and that if the children's status weakens, that entire structure begins to crack.
Duchess of Sussex, no longer HRH, was safely delivered of a son, and she and her child are both doing well. So back to the tradition of putting out a framed bulletin or a gilded easel outside Buckingham Palace after royal births has been going on since 1837, so it's a cool tradition. And George, Charlotte, and Louis' easels listed the doctors' names with signatures, birth weight and time, and referenced the royal family.
The rewritten narration turns the Sussex brand into a cautionary lesson. Without royal titles, the glamour fades, and what remains is a couple who left the monarchy yet kept profiting from it. The video suggests Harry believed that connection would always protect his children, but the palace may no longer agree.
Meghan Markle gave birth to Lily because this is what's called plausible deniability. They want to be able to say, hey, we never claimed that she was our daughter in that announcement. They're legally covering their backs. There's just too many unknowns. And then, of course, we have that the doctor that allegedly delivered Lily quit her practice 2 weeks after giving birth to Lily or delivering Lily. That sentence there is missing. That is a vital sentence that Meghan Markle chose not to put in an official statement because she knows she would get into a lot of legal trouble and she needed plausible deniability.
The voiceover now casts the palace as emotionally detached and constitutionally focused. It contrasts Charles's hesitation with William's resolve, framing William as the figure most likely to act decisively in defense of the institution his own children will one day inherit.
With either Archie or Lily, and it needs to happen. They need to prove that those children, Meghan and Harry, are not entitled to privacy in this matter. And their privacy is trumped by our right to know that no bastard is going to sit on the throne of this country.
As a result of the bizarre conduct of a cheap hustler and her dope of a husband, is entirely unnecessary and should be cleared up. There is no justifiable reason why the British public should have to put up with a doubtful situation when it has been generally accepted practice since 1688 that all royal births should be publicly attested so that there can be no question as to the entitlement of an infant to his or her place in the line of succession.
In its closing stretch, the narration lays out 3 possible endings: a quiet freeze, a silent reclassification, or full formal removal. Whatever path is chosen, the final message is unmistakable. The palace, not California, controls the ink, and the future of those titles may now depend on a single royal decision.